Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Aamsuntitledpodcast. I'm Am. Hi, if you've never met me before, it's really nice to meet you. Welcome to my Percy Jackson dedicated podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about season 2, episode 4. So, we are officially halfway through reviewing the show together, which is wild to me, but it's been so much fun. And it's gone really quick, and I'm so grateful to anyone that listens in to these episodes, who follows me on Instagram, follows me on Threads, is subscribed to my YouTube channel, listens to me on Spotify. I love you guys so much, and I'm so appreciative of all the support you guys have been giving me over the last, is it like 2 or 3 years since I started doing this now? Which is honestly insane, but yeah. So, I have a little bit of a somber note to start the episode off. I know, I don't normally talk about this sort of stuff, but there's something I felt that really needed to be addressed. So, recently I watched an interview with Leah, and she was talking about Perciveth. And I was a little worried. And the reason why I was a little worried is because I knew she was about to say something that was going to upset me. So, a lot of people have been saying that the reason why um Perciveth isn't moving forward, or there wasn't even a hug or anything this season. What she was trying to say was the fans kept saying that things are moving too fast between Percy and Annabeth. Hence the reason why in the siren scene the underwater bubble sequence was cut and the cheek kiss in season 2 was cut, because they didn't want the fans to feel like Percy and Annabeth were moving too fast. Now, this really upset me because Percy and Annabeth's relationship, in my personal opinion, is paced so well, not only in the books but in the show as well. And I expected a little bit more this season because I understand that obviously Annabeth is going to be gone for a long time in season 3. So I was hoping we'd get something special in season 2. And yes, we did get some really beautiful moments in season 2, but it wasn't, none of them were from the book. And I was a little upset about that because I was like, I was really looking forward to seeing the underwater bubble sequence and the cheek kiss. I had hope for it because I was like, okay, they haven't really given us anything apart from amazing dialogues. So I had this hope that Percy and Annabeth will have like a small amount of physical intimacy. And when none of that happened, I kind of knew that there was a reason behind it, and I'm actually quite upset to know that this was the reason. So if anybody feels that way, that Perciveth is moving too fast, would you guys explain to me why you think it's moving too fast? Because we've known for a while, like, don't forget, like, the books are told from Percy's perspective. And in live action, things do look different. You get more of an insight into each character. So I don't understand what the problem is with people thinking that they're moving fast. Yes, they have to move fast because they have to match the pace of the show. This is still a slow burn. It's not like they're kissing in the next season or anything. Like, we know, like, there's still things that have to be worked up to. So I couldn't understand why people thought this was moving too fast. So yeah, if anyone else is upset about that, honestly join the club, because I was actually a little bit hurt when I watched that interview. I was just like, I didn't think that that kind of fan reception would have such a significant impact on the show. So nothing against the show, nothing against the writers of the show or anything. I'm just a teeny bit upset, but I do understand why they've done what they've done. And maybe we might get some nice moments in season 3 as well. I'm not sure, but I just thought that that was something that needed to be addressed before we move on to today's episode. Anyway, I'm so sorry for starting this off on a little bit of a negative note. I've kind of upset myself a little bit as I'm talking about this, but I'm excited to get into the episode. So let's talk about the episode. Let's do it. Okay, so in the first scene of the episode, it's Annabeth in a sewer, which sounds disgusting, obviously. And this sewer is hideout, actually, that her and Luke and Thalia used to come to when they were on the run. And she's basically looking for the box of supplies, and she's found that everything that they left all those years ago is still there, which is amazing that it's survived this long. But yeah, and she sees a bracelet on the floor, and you can see that there's something in her, like, it triggers something in her, and these memories of her childhood are all of a sudden like coming back to her, like, the stuff that she thought she'd kind of put to bed and forgotten about is all coming back to her again. She picks up the bracelet, and you see like a small smile come onto her face, and it takes us into the first flashback of the episode. these flashbacks are something I've been looking forward to for a really long time. Like, because the books again are taught from Percy's perspective, you don't actually get to see much of what any of the other characters kind of went through growing up. And I knew that the show had the ability to expand on Annabeth's story a lot more. So I'm really excited for these flashbacks. And this whole episode is full of them, and I was loving it. I was loving every single second of it. And in the flashback, we see baby Annabeth and Luke. And it's the first time they're in this particular hideout. And baby Annabeth, oh, she's so sweet. First of all, she's played by like Leah's cousin, who's just perfect. She's like the mini version of Leah. It's great. um and she's worried about Thalia, who's outside battling Cyclopses, and you can hear kind of like the thunder and stuff in the background of her fighting with her spear and things like that, which is pretty cool. And Luke is sat there just protecting her, like comforting her, being the older brother that she still likes to believe he is, even though he isn't anymore. And he's sort of comforting her, and it's like, do you know what? It's a different side of Luke. Like, yes, he's a lot younger, but it's nice to see like this softer side of him. And I feel like the only person that can really bring that out is Annabeth. So it was nice to just see that sort of relationship form. And he finds a game inside this box of supplies called Monster Donut, which is a book reference. I loved it. I love how the show's kind of made it slightly different to what I was expecting, but it was like a really nice box, and I just looked at it and said Monster Donut. I was like, that's so cool. And Luke takes the bracelet out of the game and gives it to Annabeth, and he says that it's a protection charm, like Aegis. Also, we got a mention of Aegis, which was sick. I couldn't wait to see Aegis in the show, because obviously we don't really get to see any. I haven't seen like a version of Aegis in real life, so it was really nice to see that as well. And he says to her, like, if you wear this, like, it will always protect you. And I think that's really sweet. And I did get a little bit emotional because I was just like, how they used to be and what they are now is like two completely different sides of the spectrum. And he seemed like such a lovely guy. And it's just one of those things where the world just turns you into a bad person. And I think that's exactly what happened to Luke. He calls it Calogia's charm, goddess of stealth. She is an original goddess created by the show, and this bracelet is a symbol of protection for her. And it also symbolizes Annabeth's childhood as a demigod on the run, as someone who was abandoned at such a young age, who had to go out into the world and find her own family, which I think is really sad, but also like it adds so much depth to who she is as a person. She's a very complicated character. She's not someone who's easy to understand. And I think looking into her childhood a little bit more, we can see exactly why she is the way that she is, if that makes sense. And, you know, there's a little bit of the scene where young Annabeth kind of gives Luke a hug, and she's like holding on to him as if like there's nothing else that's more important in the world than he is. And my heart honestly melted when I was looking at them. I always have had this belief, like even when I was reading the books, that Annabeth is the person who brings the best out of Luke. And obviously, along the way, the more he distanced himself in the books, you could see it impacted who he was as a person. And it's sad that when he lost Annabeth, he lost all that goodness in him as well. And then obviously Thalia storms in and she tells them that the Cyclopses have found them. Can we just talk about this for a second? Tamara as Thalia, my God, what a casting choice. She is fantastic. She has an Thalia aura to her. She's so fiercely loyal, and you can see that she cares about her family so much, this family that she's had to create as well. And she's just brilliant. Like, honestly, she is the I couldn't have imagined someone better than her for this role. She's superb. Thalia basically flips Grover over onto the floor. The poor guy, he looks so hurt. But I'm glad we got to see a little bit of a younger Grover, because obviously when he meets Percy in the first book, he's 24, so he's a lot older. But it's nice to see like a younger version of him, and like protecting Thalia, Luke, and Annabeth was his first ever mission. So it's nice to see him and what he was thinking and feeling around that time as well. Grover offers to keep them safe and escort them to Camp Half-Blood, but Luke tells them that they have to move because it's not safe for them to stay. Obviously, the kind of life that Luke and Thalia have had. They've always been on the run, always been chased by danger, and obviously now they have this duty and this responsibility to look after Annabeth as well. And there's one thing that I particularly notice is when Thalia is looking over at young Annabeth. She does it quite a few times in this episode, and she looks absolutely terrified. And I think one of the reasons is that she makes all these decisions to protect Annabeth. Like, she just wants what's best for her sister. And I think that drives a lot of her at the beginning of this season as well, which I love. And then eventually it flashes back to older Annabeth, and she looks so sad. You know what? I feel really sorry for her because she's absolutely gone through it this season. She's lost Luke. Thalia, she doesn't know if Thalia's going to come back. You know, Grover's gone. She's having to face her fear of Cyclops because Tyson is in front of her all the time, and also like she's in a bit of a rough stage with Percy. So she's really found it hard this season, and I don't think that she's genuinely got enough credit for how she's had to manage all of this. So it was nice to see that the show is showing her in a more vulnerable light. Like, yes, she is a warrior, but at the same time she's a human being, and she does have feelings. Like, as much as she likes to admit that she's not, or she carries like this tough stoic exterior out there, we know for a fact that that is not who she is at all. Anyway, let's move on to the next scene. So it opens up with Tyson on the beach, and Percy asks him if he's fixed the motor on the boat. And he said he's already done it. Of course, he's so clever, he's so gifted, and I just love him so much. Like, there is nothing in me that hates anything about Tyson. I just think that he's pure, like, he's purity. Like, he's a symbol of purity in the show, and I love that. Tyson tells Percy that he doesn't like the fact that Annabeth is calling him dangerous, and it's nice to see that he's so protective of Percy. Like, even at the minute, if Percy's feelings are not mutual with his, or he's not looking at Tyson as a brother just yet, he knows that Percy would never do such a thing. In such a short amount of time of knowing him as a person, Tyson knows that he would never hurt anyone. And it's so nice to see that the show has brought that in as well. It's like belief and trust in the people that you love, that they are good people and they'd never do anything to hurt anyone. And I'm glad that Tyson is always there to remind Percy of how special of a human being he actually is, because he's more than just a demigod. And I think if anybody's going to help him recognize that, it is Tyson. Percy tells Tyson about the last prophecy and that it scared him. And obviously, the main stake was that he thought he was going to lose his mum forever, the person who matters the most to him. And I can't imagine any child carrying that sort of burden. And he did. And he went on this quest, and actually, things didn't turn out the way he anticipated. You know what I mean? He managed to save her, which was like pure fate. And that's what he was destined to do. And he's just sitting there reassuring Tyson that prophecies don't always mean what they think they mean because the words aren't clear. And you know what? It's so nice to see him taking on this responsibility of being an older brother and caring for your sibling. Because sometimes you don't, like, as an older sister myself, like, if there's something that I know is going to upset my sister, I wouldn't tell her that. I will always try and give her a more optimistic outlook on something, even if I know fully well, like, it's not gonna end well. I will always try and give her that positivity that things are going to be okay. And I'm glad that Percy does that for Tyson as well. They're having a little bit of sibling banter, and like start chasing each other around the beach, and all of a sudden their gets blown to shreds. And anyone want to take a guess who it is that's done that? I knew who it was straight away. I was just like, yeah, this is such a Clarisse move. I was like, no one else would make a dramatic entrance like that apart from Clarisse. Annabeth hears the explosion while she's in the sewer, and she runs up to the beach. Clarisse shows up with all her men on lifeboats. Yeah, I was like, this girl's here for the coordinates. Like, she ain't backing down without a fight. Like, that girl doesn't take no for an answer. I love her. She's super badass. But I gotta admit, some of her decisions this season are just not it. Clarisse demands for the coordinates to the Sea of Monsters, and Annabeth asks who her new friends are. Um, they are dead soldiers. It's quite obvious. Like, as soon as they come into the frame, it's pretty obvious that they are dead soldiers. And also the hair and makeup. Can we just talk about that for a second on all these soldiers? Is super cool. So a huge shout out to the hair and makeup team in Percy series for making them look so cool and so terrifying. Percy asked Clarisse how she found them, and she said that Ares pointed her towards her enemies. You know what? I have to say something is that I don't really like Ares. I don't think he's a great dad. He's a annoying character to say the least. But I have to admit, I have to give him some credit for helping Clarisse. I mean, he did give her a ship and men to help her on the quest, and you know, he did help her find Percy and them. So I suppose he kind of does some good stuff that we have to give him credit for. Clarisse tells them that they've been expelled by Tantalus for leaving camp to steal her quest. Okay, that is 100% not what happened, but sure. Like, whatever anyone wants to believe, we'll just let them believe that. Annabeth says that she will give Clarisse the coordinates to the Sea of Monsters if she lets them join her on her quest. And there's a moment where Percy and Clarisse are both like, what? You can't be serious. Like, why would we ever work together? That sort of thing. But I think Annabeth is very good at choosing priorities, and she knows, like, at the minute the priority is getting the fleece. Like, it doesn't matter how they do it, but they need to go and get the fleece, and they need to save Grover. So if working with people that they don't like is the way to do it, she'll do it. And I'm glad that she is still deemed as this very intelligent character. um and Annabeth is sort of telling Clarisse, like, look, you need all the help you can get. Like, you've never been out by yourself on a quest. You've never navigated the ocean. Like, you're not ever going to be able to do any of this by yourself. And Clarisse, obviously the person that she is, she introduces Percy and Annabeth and Tyson to Pierre, who's her navigator, Boris and Canthus, who are helping her navigate the Sea of Monsters and teaching her about the trials that she's going to face, basically. Also, remember those names. They're very important. They come up a little bit later in the episode. Clarisse asks if they are willing to surrender the coordinates or if she has to take them by force. And obviously, Percy's answer is by force. I can see the Percy-ness kicking in again. And it was funny, but at the same time, it was also not funny. Percy challenges Clarisse to single combat, and he says that it's the same way that he beat her dad. Damn. He really knows how to get into people's heads. Like, not just in terms of the way he says things, but he knows the impact it's going to have on that other person as well. And your dad has been his go to comeback this entire season. Like, he must have said it like at least 100 times this season. So it's really funny, but also it's very true to who Percy is, and Walker plays that really well. So eventually Percy and Clarisse start fighting, and Annabeth walks out with her Yankees cap. And the face that she pulls, I could tell that she had an idea. Like, she knew what she needed to do. And all of a sudden, the three of Clarisse's men, so Boris, Canthus, and what was his name? What's his name? Pierre, that's the one. They all sort of get stabbed by Annabeth with her dagger, which is a badass move, but also, like, I did feel a little bit bad for them. And Clarisse looks absolutely outraged, like the look on her face where she was like, "You killed them," and she's like, "Yeah, but they're already dead, so actually I didn't, did I?" So yeah, she's got a little bit of sassiness in her as well, which I like. Annabeth asks Clarisse if she wants to rethink their offer, and I'm pretty sure Clarisse knew that she had no other choice but to take them because none of the rest of her team could navigate the sea. Annabeth reassures her that they all want the same thing, which is to save Camp and save Grover, but Clarisse disagrees. She says she doesn't care about the satyr, and this is her quest. A lot in this episode that I noticed is that Clarisse says, "This is my quest," a lot. Now, I don't know if this is because this is her way of saying that no one but her can do this, or no one but her has the right to make these decisions, or if it's like her way of assuring herself that everything is going to be okay, like, even though she knows that she hasn't really got a chance. I can't tell, but that's what it kind of sounded like to me. I'd love to know what you guys think of it, to be honest. Annabeth says that they just want to help her finish her quest, and she looks at Percy and he says, "Aye, aye, Captain." He's so unserious. I love it, but I'm glad that he realized what Annabeth was trying to do, and he sort of agreed with her and went along with it. Tyson also salutes Clarisse, which is so cute. He's so adorable. I love it. I'm glad I noticed that. And he is definitely the stand-up performance of this season. He is incredible this season, and he just makes me want to give him a hug. I'm not even a hugger, but I just want to give him a hug. Right, let's move on to the next scene, which is on the Ironclad. First of all, can we just talk about how amazing the Ironclad set is? I think I said this in the last episode, but I'm going to say it again. Oh my god, it is an epic, colossal set that literally looks like it fell out of the books. It's insane. And Percy and Clarisse are arguing over who's more stupid. Guys, they are so sibling coded. I love it. Like, they just They fight a lot throughout this season, and it just honestly makes me laugh. They're literally like brother and sister. It's great. Percy asks Annabeth to decide who is more stupid. I love how they see her as more of like a mediating party. But I think deep down Annabeth thinks that they're both a bit stupid, but she won't ever admit that out loud. Clarisse asks why Annabeth gets to decide who's more stupid when it's her quest. This girl needs to take a lie down, like genuinely. Like she's so controlling, and she like doesn't want to listen to anyone else, and I think that's one of her issues, and the reason why this quest would have failed without Percy and Annabeth is because she's not willing to take in anybody else's opinions or listen to what anyone else has to say. And listening is like a big skill, and I think that needs a lot of work from Clarisse. Percy is complaining because Clarisse thinks that they either have to fight Scylla or Charybdis, but poor Percy can't pronounce it. I feel so bad, but also like I like that the show is still reminding us that they have ADHD, like they do have learning difficulties and they struggle with those. Um, and it's such a small, like, trivial detail that probably no one else cares about. But for someone like me, who's a book fan, like that's the sort of stuff that matters to me. So it's nice that they do that. Also, I want to publicly apologize on this episode for something. When I reviewed the Sea of Monsters book, I obviously couldn't pronounce anything. So I can't remember how I pronounced Scylla and Charybdis, but I know for a fact I said it wrong. So please don't savage me, guys. It makes me cringe every time I hear that episode, now that I know how to say it. So I really apologize if you were listening to my earlier episodes and I couldn't pronounce anything. Um, I'm sorry, but also I've learned, so you should be very proud of me. Annabeth tells Percy that Clarisse is right, and his face, you could tell he didn't like that at all, like Annabeth siding with someone else. But it's just a part of life. I suppose you have to be told when you're wrong, and I think Annabeth has no problem telling him when he's wrong. Um, she says that in order for them to pass into the Sea of Monsters, they have to make a choice whether they want to face the claws of Scylla or the whirlpool of Charybdis. That seems like a lose-lose situation on each side, but I think I know which one I would pick. Percy suggests sailing around the trials, but Annabeth explains that the Sea of Monsters literally doesn't work like that. Like, if they avoid Scylla and Charybdis, they'll keep appearing in their path until they make a decision, which is quite a cool concept, and I'm glad that Rick wrote it like that because it's very interesting. Annabeth asks Clarisse what her plan is, and she says she wants to face the whirlpool of Charybdis with her weapons. Um, you know, it's not a great idea for the reason that A, it's a whirlpool, so you could all die and the ship could get destroyed. And B, also, like, I don't think Charybdis is gonna die so easily, to be quite honest. Like, it doesn't make sense to face something like that. And I understand where Annabeth is coming from. And she suggests, the claws of Scylla, because that's what Odysseus chose. I love the references to the Odyssey book, actually. I haven't actually read the Odyssey. I've only read like bits and pieces of it, probably. But I'm glad that they've got those references in there. And, Annabeth said that he did make it through, but six of his crew didn't. So it's kind of like you have to sacrifice something somewhere, and that was one of the sacrifices that Odysseus chose. Percy tells Clarisse that this is great because, she can spare six men. Like, they can make it through because her soldiers are already dead, so it doesn't really make no difference whether they die or not. And Clarisse confesses to promising her crew Elysium if her quest succeeded. We all know that she made a mistake by doing that. And I said this in the last episode as well, that I was going to bring this up when I reviewed this episode. Um, you know, Annabeth is sort of taunting Clarisse for not being able to sacrifice people in battle, promising them an impossible prize that can only be determined by the gods, and then also like not wanting to sacrifice anyone. Like, no battle is won without any sacrifices. And I think this is what Annabeth is finding hard to understand is if Clarisse is a god of war, is the daughter of a god of war, he should have no problem trying to decide this. And it's also like one of those moments where you can see that Clarisse isn't as tough as she thinks she is. Like, as much as she likes to convince people that she's this badass woman, she actually isn't. And when it comes to people that she cares about, she becomes like anyone else, which is we're all weak when it comes to the people that we care about. And I think this crew has become so special to Clarisse, and now she's realizing that they're actually her weakness, which is interesting. And Clarisse says that she still likes her plan, but she'll let them know what she decides, and she leaves the scene. Percy says Annabeth's choice is the right one, and that Clarisse will come to see that. But that was just a tiny little Percy Beth moment that I thought I should include. It's a small one, but an important one. Supporting each other's decisions and, being there for each other is very important. And I'm glad that Percy and Annabeth are continuing to do that this season, despite the fact that maybe they had differences at the beginning of the season, if that makes sense. So let's move on to the next scene. So it's Annabeth walking across the Ironclad, and she takes the bracelet out of her pocket. And I think that this bracelet is a very big symbol of who she used to be, and it's the only connection that she has to her past. Obviously, Thalia is gone, so she's lost that connection. Luke has joined Kronos, so she's lost him as well. This is the only thing really that she's got left of her past, and it flashes back to Grover taking them to a Satyr hideout to protect them, basically, while they're en route to camp. And Grover's explained to young Annabeth that there is more to the demigod world than just monsters. It is a beautiful world beyond threats that you have to deal with, basically. Luke says that he doesn't want to join Court Half Blood, and Dahlia says that she doesn't want anything to do with her father's world. And she says that Luke already has bad history with the camp. So you can tell, like, from the beginning, Luke's mind's always been made up. Like, he calls Camp Half Blood a cult, which is a very interesting choice of words, but also a very important one. Like, he doesn't see it as home or somewhere safe for them. He just sees it as a place where you have to follow rules for people you don't like and worship the parents who are non-existent in your life, basically. And I think Thalia, the few times that she's met Zeus, I think it's proved to her how much of a rubbish parent he is and how selfish he actually is. And I think that's why she doesn't want anything to do with him, which is fair enough. I mean, none of these people hate their parents without a reason, is what I'm saying. Grover tries to convince Thalia to come to camp and asks if she wants Annabeth to live a life on the run. He knows that Thalia will make a decision based on Annabeth's safety. And he's also another person that knows how to get in people's heads. And he knows that by poking Thalia, by talking about Annabeth, he can get his way. But Luke obviously isn't having any of it. And I think it's really sad because you can see how much he actually hates Hermes. And this is when he, like, a 14-year-old Luke, like a small lad, and he's already made this decision that he hates his dad, which is insane. Baby Annabeth goes to show Grover Pelagia's charm, and she realizes that she's lost the bracelet. This bracelet is not only symbolic because Luke gave it to her, but it also demonstrates like her childhood innocence and believing that this was the thing that could protect her if she was in danger, and now it's gone missing. So obviously it's like a big moment for her and she's really sad about it. And then it flashes back to present Annabeth and she throws the bracelet into the ocean, a symbol of the fact that her childhood innocence has gone, Thalia's gone, Luke's gone, and she's trying to let go of her past life, basically. She walks off and the bracelet washes back onto the ship deck. So it turns out it might be magical after all. I like that they put the bracelet in there. I thought that was very interesting. It's nice to have something symbolic like that, like a visual object. Right, so on to the next scene. So it's Percy and Tyson talking on the Ironclad. Again, an epic set. Like, I just can't. It's just so much better than anything I ever envisioned, and I'm glad that the show had brought it to life. It's awesome. And Tyson asks, how far they are from the Sea of Monsters, and Percy says 131 nautical miles, which is so cool that he knows that. And it's nice to see, like, he's slowly, the more time he's spending in this world, he's unlocking these new demigod abilities that he didn't have before. He's a child of the eldest three. He is probably one of the most powerful demigods to ever walk the earth. Like, it's nice to see that he's slowly tapping in to these new abilities and becoming more comfortable in this world. Percy says that he doesn't know himself how he knows that. He's so cute. Like, bless him. He's like on this journey and learning these things just as we're learning these things, which is quite interesting. And Tyson reminds him that, one of the reason why he's like this is because he's a son of Poseidon. It has come with infinite abilities that he hasn't done it. So, like, he hasn't unlocked yet. So it's almost like how how many abilities does he have that he doesn't know about, which is interesting. Tyson asks why he can't do it. Percy tells him that it takes a while for the abilities to kick in and that he never really knew when stuff started really kicking in for him. I love that he's always trying to be optimistic for Tyson. Like, he never wants him to feel inferior to him, and that's such a big thing. Like, Percy is a child of the eldest three. Like, he is a powerful demigod, but he never wants to rub that in Tyson's face, which I really appreciate. Tyson tells him that he better go check on the boilers if they are going at that speed. Now, as soon as he mentioned the boilers, I was like internally, I was like, no, don't go down into the boiler room. Like I could see what was gonna happen, and the foreshadowing is insane. And if you've read the books, like you know what's coming, and it's like, no, you don't want them to do it because you don't want them to get hurt. So yeah, sorry, spoiler if you haven't read the book, something happens to Tyson, but I feel like this whole episode is full of spoilers, so I'm not even going to apologize for it. Percy stands there and he says thanks to his dad. I don't know whether he's thanking his dad for Tyson or if he's thanking his dad for this new ability, but whichever one it is, I know that he's grateful to his dad, which is nice to see. Annabeth sees Tyson holding something on the deck in his hand, and she realizes it's Kalodia's charm, the one that she basically tried to throw away, has ended up in Tyson's hand again. And he said that he was playing with Rainbow. Ooh, another little subtle foreshadowing Easter egg, you could say, which I like. I love Rainbow, and I was interested to see how the show incorporated him in, but we'll see. Annabeth asks him how he got the bracelet, and he runs away to fix the boilers. You know what? I do feel sorry for Tyson because I actually genuinely think he's afraid of Annabeth, and he knows that Annabeth doesn't like him very much, so he tries to avoid as minimal contact with her as possible. Which obviously is sad that he shouldn't feel like that, but also like it's respect for her as well because he knows that she's not the most accepting of him. So yeah, again, Tyson is a huge sweetheart, and I don't know how Annabeth doesn't just love him because he's great. Annabeth holds the bracelet, and we get to see another flashback of baby Annabeth. And it's her running out of the Satyr hideout to go back for the bracelet, and she comes face to face with these Cyclopses, so she screams. And then it flashes back to present Annabeth, and she throws the bracelet into the ocean again and walks off. And as she throws the bracelet, you see in the sea, we get like a teeny, literally, like it must be like a 2 second view of the hippocampi, who is Rainbow, and the debris, which is so cool. And it's nice that they put these like subtle hints in. It gets people excited, and I like that. Okay, so let's move on to the next scene, which is Annabeth sat in one of the docks of the ship, and Percy comes to find her, and she tells him that they're going to lose. And you can tell like going into that hideout has resurfaced a lot of suppressed feelings for her, things that she's avoided feeling and talking about all those years ago, because I don't think she's ever spoken to anyone about what she went through before she came to camp. Like all they know is who she is at camp now, not who she used to be. And Percy tries to reassure her that everything's going to be okay, but she's not having any of it. You can see this whole situation has caused her to doubt everything. Like she's doubting her ability to survive. She's doubting her ability to protect her friends. She's doubting her ability to move forward with this quest, basically. And I feel awful for her. Like she's my favorite character. Like seeing her hurt is like the worst thing for me ever. But it's also like you can tell she's got a lot on her mind and she just needs to air it out to someone, and this is why she tells Percy about it. So she tells him about this hideout that she brought him to, and that when the last time she was there she lost something that she thought was so special to her, and she went back for it, and that put Thalia and Luke in danger. So this is the regret I'm assuming that she has. You remember in season 1, in the fear is it the fields of Asphodel, where she gets stuck, she's bound by regret over something, and I think this is the regret. I'm glad that the show has picked it up, like even if it's episodes and episodes later, they've picked it up, which I like. And you can tell she hasn't forgiven herself ever for the mistakes that she made, even though she was so young. Like she'll never use being a child as an excuse, because deep down she feels like she should have known better, which is fine, but also like it means that she's torturing herself over something that she shouldn't, which is not good. And it obviously flashes back to young Annabeth being saved from the Cyclopses by Thalia. Tamara is amazing, and we got to see her do some stunt work, and she's bloody terrifying, can I just say? Like she has this presence when she walks into a room, like you feel it. And it was nice to see her like using her electric spear and Aegis. Like it was so cool. Like she's so cool. And it also shows, because she's like we were talking about, like Percy being a child of the biggest, like the eldest three, him being so powerful. Equally, Thalia is as powerful. Like she's Zeus's daughter. She's of course just as powerful as he is, but they just have different abilities, which is insane. Um, and Percy knows that she's messed up, but he doesn't think that it's that bad because she was a kid. Like he's forgiven her based on the fact that she was a kid. But obviously Annabeth, we know, doesn't see it that way. And Thalia tells, baby Annabeth that she's family and they take care of their own. Like, that's the moral that she has. Like, she takes care of her home. And it's so sweet because they gave a girl who had no one a home. They gave her a family, and I think that there is nothing more beautiful than that. And she ended up with two amazing siblings, and unfortunately, she's lost both of them, which is really sad. Like, honestly, I didn't think about it much until I was watching this episode, and I was like, wow, she really has lost everything, and that's not nice. Thalia says that she is taking her to camp because it's the safest place for her. And what an incredible move. What an incredible big sister. Annabeth was so lucky to have someone who was willing to do that for her. And obviously, Thalia sacrificing herself is the most noble sacrifice. She did it to protect the people that she loves. And I think that there is no more selfless act out there than doing that. And then President Annabeth realizes that because Thalia gave up her life for her and Luke, like, she's like, now what? you know I couldn't protect Luke. I couldn't rein him in enough, so she feels like she's done an injustice to Thalia. I think that's what it is. Annabeth knows that Percy is destined to be a weapon for Olympus, just like Thalia was, and she wants to save him. She literally says that, and I think this is her way of not of like making up for the fact that she couldn't save Thalia. So she feels really personally responsible to make sure that he doesn't meet the same fate, which obviously she has no idea whether that will happen or not. And it's so nice to see her being so open about her struggles. You know, if she was going to tell anyone, like, Percy's the best person to tell because he has genuine empathy, and she knows that he'll make her feel better afterwards. And she uses the words human choices a lot, and it shows how much she sees being a human as a weakness. Because she feels like it makes you more prone to mistakes because you start thinking with your heart instead of your head, which in her mind is completely dangerous. And the fact that she's not forgiven herself for Thalia's death, um, because she thinks it's her fault. Obviously, we know as readers that what happened that night wasn't anyone's fault. But when you're in a situation like that, I feel like the only thing you can do is blame yourself. And I think that's exactly the same spiral that Annabeth has fallen into. And there was a bit of a Percy Beth moment that I have to talk about, whereas Percy says, "It took me only 2 days to see how special you are." Can we just honestly bow down to this man because he is just perfect. I don't think I've met a more swoon-worthy man in my entire life. Like, he just knows how to say the right things, and you can see she's falling for him. Like, it's so obvious the way she looks at him, like her eyes widen, and it's so cute, and I was just melting internally. And you can see like her eyes light up when he walks into the room and things like that. It's so cute, and it's so sweet, and it's so innocent, like, even without like physical intimacy there. It's just the words that he uses and the respect that he has for her is just, oh, just I just love him. He's just the man. Like, there is nobody better than him, I don't think, which is amazing. He tells her that all they can do is, do the right thing and hope for the best. He really does have his head screwed on right, and that comes down to the sort of mother he's had as well. I'll always give the credit to Sally because she raised him on her own, basically. And she's always taught him to be true to the people that he loves, to care for the people that he loves, to always do the right thing even in the most difficult situations. And I love that. He tells her that he's only survived the most impossible odds because of her, which is so sweet. And I think it's exactly the sort of pick me up and the motivation she needed, because you can tell that Annabeth stopped believing in herself for, especially, I think I see it more in the last two episodes, like especially after the conversation that she's had with Luke. I feel like she's lost a little bit of herself, and I feel like Percy is the only person who can reignite belief in herself, which is lovely. He tells her, let's go do the impossible, and he puts his hand out to her. My God, I was smiling like an absolute idiot. Like, I'm not even gonna admit it. Like, my jaw was hurting after the episode a little bit because, like, I was just smiling so much. They just make me so happy. Like, they just deserve all the love and all the happiness. And she takes his hand and stands up. But her smile, oh my God, the way she looks at him is so cute. Like, she's got the biggest smile on her face, and you could tell, like, she feels better. Like, she feels like a weight has been taken off her shoulders, which I love. Okay, let's move on to the next scene. And it's Clarisse basically talking to her crew, and she's telling them that she needs 6 men to man the artillery deck when they face Scylla. And bless them, her whole crew like volunteer. He tries to warn them, like it's gonna be a really dangerous duty, and Carrington tells her for victory and Elysium, he would follow her anywhere. Oh my. This is actually getting like ridiculously sad because I know exactly what's about to happen, and it's such a shame about what's going to happen because she'd built such an incredible bond with these people, and now they're going to be taken from her, which is awful, by the way, but I suppose that's just the way life goes. I think they're the sacrifice that Clarisse had to make for this quest, and although that's very cruel of the fates to put her in a situation like that, I think it taught her a lot. She changes a lot over the next few episodes, which is nice. And just seeing the sadness in Dior's eyes, you can tell like she doesn't want to sacrifice anyone, and she can't grant them Elysium. She knows that, and she's also feeling really guilty about it. Like she knows she should have never promised them something like that, but she did it anyway. I do feel bad for Clarisse. I know she's a little rough around the edges, but she's not as heartless as people think she is. She's a very emotionally complex character, and she learns a lot, particularly in this season. And her arc as a character, I am so unbelievably proud of. So yeah, and like I said, I was never a big fan of book Clarisse. I didn't really have much sympathy for her. I didn't think that she had anything redeemable in her, to be honest. But I feel like Dior's added a completely different perspective on her, and I love that. Okay, let's move on to the next scene. Clarisse is sat outside while her crew are singing a song about Elysium. And she knows that this is probably the last time they're all going to see each other, which is awful. And Percy walks in. Now, when he walks in, like something always goes through my mind, which is I don't know if he's ever going to say something helpful or if he's going to say something that's going to annoy her because he's like they've got this sibling sort of bond. So I don't know if anything that is actually going to come out of his mouth is helpful or not. And he says to her that he's heard that she's picked the six, but she doesn't really say anything. She's just stood there like looking at the floor. You could tell she feels so guilty about this. Like I honestly feel awful for her. Um, and Percy asks her if she wants half of his sandwich, which is sweet, but also I feel like food is probably the last thing on her mind right now. But it's sweet of him to offer. I can't ever knock him down for that. Clarisse asks how he survived his quest last year, and he says that he would have died if it wasn't for his friends. And I love that the show is demonstrating the importance of having good people around you, people who love you and back you up no matter what. Like it's such an important message to put out there to people. Like please never feel like you're alone. There are people out there that love you and care about you and want to see you succeed and who would do anything for you. And I'm glad that Percy knows that his friends would do that for him. And in the same way, he would do that for them as well. So the feeling is always mutual, basically. Percy asks Clarisse who she picked for the quest, and she said that she didn't need friends because her dad gave her a crew and a ship. Yeah, I knew there was a bit of a moment where I was sat there while I was reviewing this. I was just like, yeah, no, she doesn't believe that. Like, she knew she didn't have anyone to ask to join her on this quest, and that's why she didn't pick anyone. Because she knew that not many people at camp maybe like us, and nobody would be willing to lay their life down for her, so she never took that risk, basically. And I do feel sorry for her because she does need some real friends. Like, she needs people to point her in the right direction. And I truly think that Annabeth and Percy teach her a lot this season as well. Percy tells Clarisse that he knows it must be tough having Ares as a dad, since he knows what it feels like to be personally body slammed by him. Again, like I always mention this, but Rick always manages to put humor into a serious situation, and I'm glad that that part of this, like the books, hasn't been taken away. I'm glad they still make Percy a little bit unserious and say things that are maybe just not appropriate in certain situations, because that's just a part of who he is, and I love that. And Clarisse says that she wants to make him proud, like she sees it as a duty, like it's not a negotiable, basically she has to make him proud. And I know she's not doing this quest because she wants to, she's doing it to prove a point, which is a good thing but also a bad thing. Like the motivation behind the quest is completely different. Like for example, in the last season, like Percy's motivation was getting his mum back. He had a pure intention behind it, and I think the fact that Clarisse is doing this without like appropriate motivation, like the only motivation that she's got is she has to be the hero that saves camp. Like that's all she needs. That's all that's in her head. She doesn't really have anybody who she's fighting for, which is sad. So Percy tells her, there's a lot of stuff that they do because of their parents, but they are their own people with their own lives. He's actually getting a lot wiser. I'm very proud of him for this, but also it shows his growth since the last season. Like, demigods often don't get the opportunity to live their lives because they are way too busy trying to be heroes and winning their parents' approval. And it's this amazing, like, genuine moral lesson, which is like, I think Sally says it. It's like, if my life is going to mean anything, I have to live it myself. And this is the same thing here. It's like what he's trying to say is the exact same thing. Demigods don't live their lives. They're too busy living their lives for other people, and that's not enough. And, if you want to look back on your life and have no regrets, you have to do it for yourself. And I'm telling you, no one teaches a moral lesson like Rick does in Percy Jackson. And I'm so happy that they put that in there as well. When you deeply think about these things, even though these books were written like 20 years ago, like they still have so much relevance to now. And I'm always grateful for that and always grateful for the things that he teaches people in his books. So, Rick, if you're listening, I love you, and that will never change. Clarisse says that camp is her home, like she can't afford to fail, and Percy reassures her that she won't fail. He tells her that, you won't have been granted a quest like if you didn't have it in you to finish it. And I think this might just be one of the most civilized conversations that these two have ever had. And you know what? I'm proud of them for like being able to look past their differences and being mature about the situation that they're in. And Percy realizing that, now is not the time to be one upping Clarisse. Now it is the time to be the friend and the support that she needs, basically. Percy asks her about the prophecy and she tells him. Percy says that the prophecy isn't so bad. It's a teeny bit bad because obviously it mentions like failure and things like that. But I think what Percy was trying to say is at least no one's gonna die. I think that's what he was trying to say. Mitch comes to get Clarisse because they have arrived, and she takes like a massive deep breath and she pauses. And right before she leaves, she reminds Percy that they're not friends. She's still trying to push people away, and that's okay. Like it takes time for her to sort of open up to people and get comfortable around people. But I hope that the show eventually shows her comfortable with people and having friends around her because she does deserve it at the end of the day. And obviously, the scene ends with Percy carrying on eating his sandwich, and he's so unserious. I actually can't. But at least we know that he's being fueled up, ready for whatever's going to happen next. Okay, now we're on to the last part of the episode. A lot goes down. I've literally just summarized it, so bear with me. So we're on the deck of the Ironclad, and Clarisse's men are ready on the artillery deck for the trial. She tells her men that they are sailing into glory, and you could tell she's putting up a brave face for them. She knows what's going to happen. She knows the sacrifice that's about to be made. But you know what the worst thing is? She can't do anything about it. And there is no more horrific position to be in than not being able to save the people that you care about. Could we just talk about like the VFX and the CGI? It's so cool. Like the Sea of Monsters thing looks terrifying. Like honestly, I was looking at it yesterday and I was like, whoa, that is one place I would not want to run into any danger in. Percy, Annabeth, and Clarisse are inside the ship steering it through the sea. It goes silent, and then Scylla begins grabbing people, and Clarisse loses it, and she starts to take the wheel and steer them out the way. Basically, you could tell something in her just snapped, and she was just like, "No, I can't do it. Like, I need to get out there and be there for my team." Basically, Clarisse says that she wants to fight Charybdis, saying that heroes slay monsters; they don't run away from them. She's got a point, but she's also very reckless. Like she's not careful in any decision that she makes, and you're about to see what happens because of that. Carelessness is not something that you can afford on a quest, and you're about to see exactly why she had to be like what am I trying to say? You're about to see why her quest ends up being more complicated than it needs to be, basically. Um, Clarisse runs out to her crew, and bearing in mind, like it's pouring with rain, they're in this whirlpool, and she uses a World War II. I don't know if it's a cannon or if it wasn't a rifle. She didn't get to use a rifle, but yeah, to slay the monsters. And she's fighting Charybdis. Actually, looks pretty cool. Like I gotta say, like she looks pretty aggressive, like fighting those monsters. She does a good job, but also like she shouldn't have put herself in that situation. Percy and Annabeth decide to take things into their own hands. Percy suggests to turn the tide so that they can slingshot out the other side of the sea, basically. Annabeth says to him, "Okay, you fight the current. I'll fight the wind." And she leaves to grab the thermos of the winds that Hermes gave them. Percy runs to the front of the ship and tries to control the tide. You know what? It is so nice to see him pushing his abilities. Like, he doesn't know whether he can do this, but he has belief and hope in his dad that his dad's given him this ability, and he has this belief that he can save everyone. So that is what's driving him, and I love that about him. Um, Percy tells Tyson to give the ship more power, and he says, "Yes, brother." You know what? They are such a team. Like, he Tyson is exactly who Percy needed. Like, Percy needed a friend, someone who is as fatally loyal as he is, who looks after him, who listens to what he says, who is always there for him, and that person definitely is Tyson. Annabeth is running across the deck with the thermos, and she gets knocked over by the wind and ends up falling overboard, and the thermos unfortunately falls into the boiler room. We know what's about to happen, and I wasn't liking it. I wasn't appreciating the subtle foreshadowing. The thermos opens fully inside the boiler room, and it causes a bit of a disaster because obviously it's setting everything on fire, which is not good. Clarisse runs over to save Annabeth. See, I knew there was something good in her. There is something redeemable about her, and she saves my girl. So I love her for that. Percy turns around to see Annabeth and Clarisse. After Clarisse has obviously saved her, the thermos is destroying the boiler room, and Tyson is stuck, and the ship just like starts to break apart. Guys, you know what? Even though I knew this was coming, like nothing could have prepared me emotionally for how I felt watching it, because I was just like, oh no, like people are gonna die and it's not good. Clarisse and Annabeth realize what's about to happen, and the thermos goes like the winds from the thermos come out, and she goes flying upwards. Annabeth is holding on to the railing so she doesn't fly off into the whirlpool, and Percy realizes that he's about to lose. Like, there's nothing he can do. His abilities weren't enough to save everyone, and I don't think that there's anything worse than that. The whole ship starts to disintegrate and is being forced up by the whirlpool, and Percy basically like closes his eyes really tightly. Can we talk about the score in that scene as well? Like, the beats were just perfect, the music was perfect, and that's how the episode ends. Wow, oh my god, that was a lot. Like, that was a lot even for me. Like, I'm just like, whoa, what happened, basically. But yeah, it was such a good episode, and like that was a good like halfway point. And the way they ended that episode was cruel. Like, I had to wait a week to see what happened, and I was not happy. But it was so good, such a great episode. Like, I love that episode, and I can't believe it. We're officially halfway through. Next time I talk to you guys, we'll be talking about one of my favorite episodes from the season, which is episode 5. Right, let's wrap this up with my kind of like final thoughts and feelings. Okay, so the entire Ironclad sequence was absolutely incredible. I couldn't have imagined anything better than that. And yeah, it was just better than what I expected, which is amazing. I was highly impressed. I loved all the flashback sequences. They've really helped develop Annabeth, Luke, Thalia. I'm glad that Thalia, she is the invisible string in this season. I'm glad we're learning more about her before we hopefully get to see her again, which is going to be very cool. It's nice to see more of Tyson and Percy getting along and just being normal siblings. It's nice that they have each other to rely on, and they have such a beautiful brotherly bond. I'm sure Sally would be very proud of the two of them. I love the little Percabeth moments. It's great. I can see, there's that quote which is she'd had from the books, which is she'd had a crush on him since they were 12 years old. I think you can definitely see it in the show. It is far more obvious, and I'm glad we get to see that, because obviously when the books were told from Percy's perspective, like, we don't really get to hear what's going on in Annabeth's head. At least with the show we can kind of read her expressions, which is nice. um, it was a really full on episode. The scale of the episode was absolutely incredible. The sets, the hair, the makeup, the costumes, the score, absolutely incredible. I couldn't have imagined like a better episode. It was a great way to be like halfway through the season. In other words, like, it gets you excited, which is nice. Um, I love Clarisse's emotional depth this season. I'm glad the show has given her more of an opportunity for her character to be hashed out so we can understand her a little bit better. And I'm glad that she's got her screen time this season as well. All the moral lessons, again, I'm glad that they've been incorporated from the books as well. It's really nice to see that. And I'm very excited for the next episode, because the next episode probably might be my favorite this season, which is when we go to Cersei's island. I was obviously very excited to see what they did with the siren scene, which I'm excited to talk to you guys about. So yeah, overall, I was very happy with the episode, and it's probably one of the best episodes in season 2. So thank you guys so much for listening in. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, sorry that it started a bit on a negative note, but I promise next week will be a lot better. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I really appreciate it. Whether you're supporting me on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Spotify, it means the absolute world to me. So please continue to support me. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Spotify whilst you're there. It would be greatly appreciated. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Threads. I'm quite active on both of them. Feel free to DM me any questions as well. My DMs are always open, and I do put all my contact information in the description boxes. So check that out if you want to ask me anything. And like I said, very excited for next week's episode. Probably my favorite episode, episode 5. And I will speak to you guys then. Mwah. Bye.